All right, everyone, it is a very good day. It's time for Occult Literature 137, the Ars Goetia, probably the most infamous work of, what would be considered black magic, goes along with demonology, ever written. And it is a standalone work. People need to understand the Lesser Keys is not a book. It's like the Bible. The Bible is comprised of books. It's essentially a compilation of other literature. The Goetia is standalone. Now, link in the description to my edition of this work on Amazon. I can confirm that at least at this time it's the cheapest edition. I have read other editions too, and oftentimes they have spelling errors or the images are so low quality they're useless. That is a problem. Some of them have low ratings as a result of things like that. My edition has been re-illustrated by the very talented Rita Metzner, who also did several herbals for me. I will be contacting her as well to rework some illustrations in pre-existing works, like for the 12 keys. So somebody had a problem with it that didn't have the woodcuts in it. Now, the woodcuts aren't original to the original document. They were added years later, and I sort of care about that, but I think I'll just add them. It'll make it look more attractive to some people. But the Ars Goetia is extremely interesting. And by the way, second and third links to my books blogs as well in the description. You can get other grimoires there if you're into them, as well as works on alchemy, the academic side of the occult, a little bit of everything, some fortune telling, some herbalism as well. It's an interesting work in that it's essentially most of it is a list of demons, 72 specifically, and these are demons that King Solomon, this goes along with the Testament of Solomon, which is its own work, and you should read it. It's very interesting. It's sort of an apocryphal text. King Solomon, he gets the magic ring and he binds demons to build the temple at Jerusalem. He puts them in a vessel of brass, dumps it into a lake in Babylon to sort of rid the world of demonic influence. He's like, well, to hell with this. We're not going to deal with these demons anymore. Unfortunately, then the people of Babylon, because they saw him doing this, they went and they immediately retrieved the vessel, and then they opened it up, and the demons came back out. And then Belial became like an idol to them, became like a god. And so that ties in with a few stories of its own. But the Goetia is often wrapped up with other texts and put into the actual lesser keys, sort of the MacGregor, Mathers, and Crowley sort of material. Samuel Mathers, rather. That's all well and good, the problem being that they're not entirely from the same tradition. You see, the problem is like the Ars Notoria is centuries older than the Goetia and its counterparts. Sometimes is omitted thus from editions. And there are also different strains, different manuscript traditions of the Goetia itself. There are, I believe, 4 main variants of the Ars Goetia alone. There are also variants of these other works. It can be a bit confusing. I myself have removed some of the Crowley inclusions from this particular edition because it's not helpful. It comes from his own magical tradition. It's not contemporary to the time in which the Goetia was actually created. The other works involved include the Thursia Goetia, which is airy spirits. And there's sort of a mixture of good and bad. Like the Ars Goetia itself is about evil spirits. Funnily enough, they're also referred to often as being benevolent and wonderful and mighty and being pleased with the conjurer. I use the term master. The terms conjurer and exorcist are also used in different traditions, so again, confusion a little bit. They're evil spirits, but somehow they're also, in some cases, loyal and benevolent, would never beguile you. I'm not sure if that makes any sense. But then there's the Thursia Goetia, the Ars Paulina, and the Ars Almadel as well, and then the Ars Notoria, or its shortened Ars Nova, which are often omitted from, modern variants. I know when I compile the lesser keys for myself to release my own edition fully re-illustrated and so forth, it will not have the Notoria. It's not necessary because it's not part of the same grouping of texts. It was just put there for some topical overlap, without realizing, of course, that the others, the latter texts, borrow from the former, the oldest, which is the Notoria itself. And I've already released an edition of that, but it needs to be reworked, like re-illustrated, and it's in the old format that I used, so that's another project for another time. But the Ars Notoria is extremely interesting. If you want grotesque depictions of demons and their various powers and the seals that are used to conjure them, this is definitely, it's the work for you. You will have to know, however, how to craft talismans out of certain metals. You will need to know how to do that in order to call them forth. And the magical circle is pretty in-depth. Like, things have to be a certain color, a certain size, very intricate, a lot of Hebrew terms. The conjurations contain a lot of the allusions to like the names of God sort of thing, sort of like the Semiphorus. Some sort of magic along those lines. Simply the use of a certain word because it has its own innate power because of the way it's pronounced, essentially. Very, very Kabbalistic system. So it's an interesting work, very dark, very literally demonic. Most of it is the listing of the demons and their seals, and then you've got a number of conjurations. Interestingly, if the spirit is disobedient, you conjure the spirit. It doesn't come forth. There's a second conjuration. You're like, no, I implore thee, spirit, basically. It still doesn't come forth. Then you curse it by putting its seal in a metal box, and it has to be metal because it can't be immolated. Heating it with asphodel and other stinky substances like sulfur. And the idea is that tortures the spirit. It's called the spirit's chain in some traditions, or the greater curse. Or then there's the lesser curse. And then some of the spirits, you have to offer them sacrifices. I'm not sure because it doesn't mention building an altar to do so. I'm assuming that's, by the side of the ritual circle. And I've also heard different traditions in how the summoning works. So, like, there's a postmodernist sort of demonology that inverts parts of the ritualism itself, because the idea is that the demon is more conjuring you than the reverse. At least I've heard that from several individuals. I haven't myself practiced that at all. So it's an interesting work. It's 106 pages in length, so it is full length. When compiled with the others, I believe the total, minus the Notoria, will be about 150 to 160. Because the Thurja itself, I believe, is about 40 pages, but in a proper format for modern books, it probably would be less than that. And then the Pauline and Almadel are not particularly long. I think they're both about 20 pages, or a little bit less. And again, change in format applies. Again, though, link in the description to my edition of this work. It is the most inexpensive, so you'll be happy about that. Second and third links to the book blogs. There are a great many works there. We're on 137 already. I'm hoping to get past 150 by the end of the year. Probably at the rate I'm moving, I can do it because I've got a couple of works. One is almost done, and a couple are fairly short, but they need to be released because they're important documents nonetheless. As far as length, I like little booklets. Some people are like, well, this is only 30, 40 pages, and it's not really a book. Okay, maybe so, but it is a standalone work, and I think it deserves to be prepared in a modern form so that hopefully it doesn't become an extinct piece of writing, because that's happened in human history, and then it drives people, like myself, who are bibliophiles, absolutely insane that happened, and makes us want to dig around in caves and tombs to, find a piece of paper. That's about all. Peace out.